is she gonna do? Hey everybody, I'm Tiffany. Welcome to the Cinematic Reviewer. Today I'm reviewing Obsession. Now Obsession, I have to tell you guys, I've been anticipating this movie for so long. I've been excited about this movie since I first saw the trailer the very last day of 2025. I was like, what in the world movie is this? This looks very intriguing, very interesting. I'd like to check this out. So, loved the teaser trailer. I still think that is such a great concept, great vibe. It definitely gave me the Substance vibes with the phone call and the music that was playing in the teaser. And even with the regular trailer, I was down with it. I was intrigued. I was wanting to see what they were gonna do with this potential. I definitely was looking forward to it. So, like my most anticipated movie of the year almost. I was very looking forward to this movie. I thought I was really gonna like it. Again, so, no, I did not enjoy it, unfortunately, which is a bummer because who doesn't want to love a movie that they were super looking forward to? Yeah, it did not hit. It did not hit at all. And I will say, when I first saw the trailer, the full trailer, I was like, I kind of was intrigued by this concept based on the vibe of the teaser trailer. I was a little like, I don't know, like having the actual girl there, how are they gonna do this? And yeah, I don't think they did a good job with this. And here's the thing. I just think this movie would have been so much stronger if it changed the perspectives. If we more saw the true horror of the fact of what's actually happening to Nikki. Like, yes, sometimes they touch on that, but I 100% agree with a lot of other reviewers where it was way too sympathetic to Bear. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, the fact that it was like, the trailer totally gave off this is going to have commentary on incels, entitlement to women, how horrific that would be to just bypass any sort of, like, you can't just do that to someone. Like, that's just awful. And it's like, yeah, it definitely was very sympathetic to the male character in a very, very bad way. Like, we literally have on-screen rape. That was awful. And any dude who would be like, oh, that's not what it is like, eesh. Put you on a list, my gosh. Yeah, this movie was so not what I was hoping it would be. I definitely also agree with other people in their reviews that it had a great concept, but it didn't really do much with it, which obviously is a bummer, because it's like, why have us watch the movie at all? I 100% agree. It's a great concept. It would have been interesting to be like 23 minutes long, just a short film, because they really tried to pad the runtime with this. And again, I 100% agree with other reviewers. It's such a gimmick, the same stuff over and over and over again, and not in any more interesting way. Also, I was thinking to myself when I first watched the movie, after I left the theater, I was like, okay, it kind of didn't fit into the 2020s horror cliche of it being hitting your head so many times, whatever. But if you think about it, they still very much incorporate that. Now, what was interesting was I did look at a review. Someone said, I guess they looked at the behind the scenes of this movie, they were going to have way more head-smashing scenes, but they had to cut it, otherwise they would get an NC-17 rating. And I'm sorry, if that's the only thing that they had to get rid of, they should have had way more legit content. Like, it's actually crazy that clearly we see that the real Nikki is suffering, being tortured. We hear the screams. We know in general that, oh my gosh, she is suffering. And instead it's, don't you feel bad for Bear? No, I don't feel bad for Bear. Are you kidding me right now? Like, they were way too, like, not really getting into the full extent of how terrible he was. what he was doing, and I 100% agree with people. Like, he should have contacted One Wish Willow way earlier. He should have taken himself out way earlier. Like, the fact that he finds out about this and then he's like, nah, I'll keep it. And I was like, ooh, that's a terrible look, and you're gonna try and make me sympathize for him? I don't think so. Yeah, I definitely think it is. Okay, hear me out. I know people can be like, oh, looks, whatever, don't judge on looks. Sometimes a look kind of is like a warning. It's definitely a little bit of like, have your guard up. Now, I made sure to have a lot of interviews and other sorts of reviews and such saved, ready to watch after I watched the movie. Now, I did see the creator of this, like I heard his name a lot by people talking about the movie in anticipation. Now, looking at the guy, ooh, he looks pretty creepy. And I'd say that's kind of what you get with this movie in the sense of what sort of narrative is he going for? And again, why sympathize for the guy who's literally doing this awful thing? I don't think so. That's not a good look. And yeah, I 100% think, like, Companion, it is, yes, you can say that it kind of delves into robots, androids, whatever, but just like so many of these ones, Ex Machina, all these sorts of movies, TV shows, stories that are what is the android robot modeled after. A lot of the time it's a woman. And I 100% agree with people that more properly analyze that it's not so much about the actual technology that's being touched on. It's actually very much kind of female focused, not always in a good way. It definitely has certain commentary and a little bit of like male fear of women, which is sometimes that can really touch on some not so good theming of messages. So, for example, with Companion, and that was a movie I so much loved, it's still one of my all-time favorites from 2025, that delves into consent and all sorts of things, and in a good way where it actually was a good framing and the perspective, the point was on the female character. Meanwhile, with this one, it's as if we're gonna root for Jack Quaid's character. That's kind of how it's framed in Obsession, and no, don't do that. So, what I was expecting from the movie, again, I thought it was going to have commentary on incels, entitlement to women, how awful this was, because, okay, I am shocked, truly shocked, when I went to the movie, when I was in the theater, after leaving the movie, looking at reviews, both times, I was like, why are you laughing? I pretty much never saw anything in this movie where I was like, oh my goodness, that was so funny. What a comedy. And then there's a lot of people that were like laughing in the theater. Like some of the girls next to me laughing up a storm. And I was like, what? Like maybe some of it was uncomfortable laughing. Like you're uncomfortable and you laugh. Maybe. But then I also saw for a lot of dudes, and that's kind of telling, they're laughing a lot, and I was like, dude, this is truly a horror movie. Like, I 100% disagree with people that they're like, oh yeah, this is more horror comedy than horror, and I was like, ooh, I guess it depends on your perspective, like, what you're taking from the movie, because if you're looking at it and how it really should be looked at, what is happening to Nikki, it is 100% a horror movie. That was terrible. She's literally suffering, being tortured. The couple times she's able to wake up, she wants out of this situation. It was terrible, just awful. Again, I was so frustrated by how they kept trying to have us sympathize with Bear. I was like, ooh, stop it right now. Like, that really was, ugh, please don't do that. So I did give it 2 stars. I don't think it is 1 star horrible. I think they had some interesting elements. I don't know. I really didn't like it, which is a bummer, but whatever the case. And honestly, what I gotta say is, what do I have to say for 2 stars? What are the 2 stars really for? 2 middle fingers up, because what in the world was that? I am very ridiculously obviously disappointed. Again, what was this movie trying to say? I don't think the message was very good. If it was trying to say something a little bit more what it should have been saying, because, ooh. Yeah, also, I had already seen this. This is when the trailers were just out, and I saw plenty of comments on the internet of these dudes being like, oh my gosh, crazy girl, oh my gosh, this is bringing me such PTSD of my previous relationship. And I was like, are we looking at the same movie? Are you kidding me right now? And apparently, there were dudes that saw this movie and were still having the same impression. And it's like, did we watch the same movie? Again, they were way too sympathetic to Bear, to the incel type, to the male entitled type, 100%. At the same time, did we not see the same context in here? Did we not see the same horrific stuff that was happening to Nikki? I was like, what is even going on? This is definitely not a good look, and the fact that they were very like, oh yeah, I'm very frustrated, I'm very unhappy with how this all transpired. I thought I knew where this movie was gonna go, and it definitely didn't. And again, I do wonder what this story could have been if we had a female creator, if we had a female director that, oh yeah, I'm sure it would have been so much better. And that's the thing that's so weird about it. Like, it has themes that you would think it's going to be properly detailing what's happening to Nikki, how horrific that is, and instead it's, oh, don't you feel bad for Bear? Again, no I don't! Like, that's just crazy. Ugh. I was very displeased with what happened here. Also, one thing I gotta say, I know some people were like, get another one Wish Willow. Well, later on in the movie he does, and it doesn't work because you only get one wish. But then also people were like, all right, have someone else do the wish. Well, his buddy Ian does it. The one thing I'd like to know is, and that's the thing, I do agree with people where like some of the lore doesn't really get explored. It's just kind of like, yeah, it's here, and we don't just get all that much detail after that. It doesn't really go in depth with like what all the One Wish Willow does, because it definitely seems, based on what the girl was saying at the shop and everything like that, that it does have a price. And I think it's more than just, if you make a wish like what Bear wished for, obviously that is a terrible wish to wish for, like it was a major mistake. But I even think something like what he was asking for, I'm sure there would be a caveat. I just don't think it would be something where it's like, you make this wish and everything works out. I just highly doubt that would be what happens. Also, 100% agree with people that besides the fact that it really should have been more female-centric in the sense of what is the narrative about, what is the true horror, also the fact, where's the gratuitous violence on women? Like I said, we get an on-screen rape. Look at what happened with the brick scene. First off, I gotta say, it was so obvious she was gonna come up and attack. Like, yeah, I do agree with people. This movie was very predictable. There weren't too many things that were like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Like, if you've never seen a horror movie, fine. You'd be like, oh my gosh, that was so shocking. But it's a lot like movies from present. There's nothing that's really different about this one. I'm so surprised this has a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Are you serious? Did we watch the same movie? Whatever the case. But the whole thing of, like, it's the on-screen rape, it's what's happening to Nikki the whole movie, what happens to Sarah, like I said with the brick scene, but then even after that, what we get with that scene when he comes back into the house at the very end, oh, dude, what in the world? You know, like, just has her in that chair, and I was like, oh. And again, you have to look at a movie, just like any sort of story, who's making this story, and what does it really mean? And it's like, ooh, that's terrible, because again, it could have been just as easy. Oh, for Ian's character, we just get one shot to the head, that's it. No gratuitous anything, no worries. And it's like, you could have done that with the female characters, but no, you're gonna be very, again, it's a really bad look, and again, what I thought this movie would be, what it seemed like this movie would be, and instead it's just like, what if we made a story about a crazy woman, even though she has no control, and the real villain is the guy? How revolutionary is that? And it's like, are you serious right now? Like, I saw some people talking about Fatal Attraction, that this is like Gen Z Fatal Attraction. Never seen the movie. I know some of the context of that movie, and it's like, maybe they're onto something. But I gotta say, it is frustrating, and I mean, I do appreciate seeing some of these male reviewers see it for the same sort of thing of like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. What sort of message is this? And that was some really messed up context. But at the same time, some of these dudes are just like, crazy girl. And it's like, again, what? How are you not getting what the story has? Again, I'm not saying, because I do give a lot of criticism to what this story was saying. At the same time, I didn't appreciate. I did not appreciate where this story was. My point was to say, because again, I am giving a proper caveat to the male reviewers that 100% agreed the same way, where it's like, ooh, this was not a good look, not a good framing, all that sort of thing. But really, it is interesting where it has such a division of, what will the female movie watcher see from this, and what will the male movie watcher see from this? It is very distinct in how it's framed, because it literally is. It is the context for some of the dudes. They would sympathize more with the monster. And for the women, it's like, oh my gosh, look at how horrible this was. So, again, I wish this movie could have been what I thought it would be. It is a bummer, because the trailer definitely seemed like it was going to touch on this, and I can see what some people were saying, that like the diner scene was one of the only good scenes. Like, sometimes it was. It just delved into the same stuff over and over, and it's like, okay. It definitely didn't need as much runtime as it had, and I just was so ridiculously disappointed. Also, the movie was scary. I will give the movie credit for that. It was a scary movie. She was very intense. Again, whatever possession this was, I do kind of wish they kind of got into that, because there's this part with Nikki where she's sleeping and the possessed part of her is asleep, but the real Nikki is talking to Bear and begging him to kill her because she's being tortured this whole time and, you know, doesn't want to suffer anymore. I'm still kind of curious, because she refers to the possessed version of herself as her, and it's like, what is this creature? Like, what's going on here? So I kind of want a little bit more delving into it, especially, again, given the runtime. And I do agree with people that it doesn't really sequence well together. It's kind of like a scene happens here, a scene happens here, instead of it being a full-fledged story and how it's executed. So I wish this movie could have been better. I very much wish this movie could have been better. This is, what was that? Disappointing, frustrating, whatever the case. So I definitely went off the cuff with this. I have many thoughts. I'm sure there's some things I forgot about, but and not uncomfortable in a you did a good job way. Uncomfortable in, why did you have the narrative be like this? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Oh, I really did wish this could have been a very different structure and setup and everything like that. So not much I can do about it. This is the story that was framed and told. Yeah. Did not appreciate. But I will say, the part that really freaked me out, or really scared me, so when he comes back at the very, very end of the movie, this is after he encounters Ian, and Ian, of course, doesn't take him seriously with the one Wish Willow, and wishes for $1 billion, and you see the money raining down, whatever. So then he comes back, and he sees the horrific thing that happened to Sarah, and you see her, and ooh, that was creepy. Dude, I literally, I saw this in Dolby, so it's like that, you know, partial reclining. I literally hugged my knees to myself. I was so like, oh, what is she gonna do? Some of this stuff was pretty tense, pretty insane. Ooh, it was a lot. I wanted to go ahead and talk more about my thoughts on Obsession. I went through and edited the footage that I originally filmed, and I fully know what I thought about the movie, my impressions of the movie, what I hoped the movie would be versus what the movie actually was. And I gotta say, like, it was a few days after I reviewed it and everything, and I'm like, even I'm trying to understand what I'm trying to say. So I wanted to just put more proper clarification on what I'm trying to say. For me, what I wanted from the movie is a more blatant, like, yeah, this is what this guy's doing, that's terrible. And also not gratuitous, not still having the same portrayal you could have of this violence against women, against Nikki, against Sarah. And it's like, if you have the same sort of portrayal that any standard horrifically sexist, horrifically misogynistic story, if it's gonna have the same stuff, then how can you really say you're any different? I wish more people would acknowledge that's pretty distasteful. I am really getting sick and tired of more and more people praising this movie like crazy, saying it's genius. And here's one thing I will say. From what I am hearing and seeing from people and my own impressions from the movie, here's the thing. I feel like this story, Obsession, is getting a little bit of the same treatment as the drama earlier this year. I really did not care that much for that movie. It was a bit rough, but at the same time, I did appreciate some of the discourse of the movie, that it's like, oh, okay, so Rachel is supposed to be, like, her reaction to Zendaya and everything, it is supposed to be not good, negative, all that sort of thing. Fine. But then people are acting like this is the most brilliant story ever. Last thing you need to do is give a pedo credit. Maybe try not to do that, guys. Like, look into the directors of these stories. Just a thought. My point being, I do not think Obsession is this genius story. I do not think the portrayal here is so masterful. And I'm getting really sick and tired of more and more people trying to be like, oh my gosh, like, did you notice this? Did you notice that? And it's like, yeah, some of that is in here, but I think you're reading way more into the story than, like, the actual intention was. Like, it's kind of like the thing in school where they will break it down more. And at the same time, in school, fine, it has some merit for it to be like, yeah, this is intended to be literature and a classic. So even if certain intentions and impressions are not intended, it's really good to analyze to further your literacy, which is 100% fair. I just find it very frustrating when a story such as Obsession, that it doesn't do much. It does not give that much. And again, what is the screen time? So much torture, so much misery, so much suffering. And then people are going to be like, well, did you notice this? Look at the proper context, the subtext. And it's like, honestly, if the story was like that at face value, I probably would have enjoyed it more. Like, the way some people are analyzing it, it's like, yeah, I would want to watch that movie, but that's not the movie I watched. So again, I'm just a little bit frustrated, and let me make it clear, I have seen this, and I'm not saying it hasn't existed for, like, since life began, but particularly, it is interesting to see what people will do if you disagree. Whether you enjoyed a movie, whether you hated a movie, story, books, that sort of thing, like anything, what people will do is, in order to, it's more than just defend their opinion, it's also to invalidate anyone else. Whatever is the opposite of what they like, they're like, you didn't understand it, you're too stupid to get it. And it's like, no. And if that's the only way that you can say, hey, I don't like what you had to say, the only sort of way you could do it is being like, oh, you're too stupid for this. I mean, like, way to go, not really having a good defense. Whatever the case, my point is, this story is not this genius 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10 genius concept, okay? And again, too, like I'm saying, I do not appreciate that so much of this movie. First off, I kind of broke it down in my first start of talking about this movie, that it is kind of slow, kind of nothing. It has a lot of scenes that kind of repeat. And again, too, like, what was wild was that when I was first talking about the movie, I didn't even say that she did a good job. And of course she did. The actress for Nikki, she did a great job. But again, it's still how I feel. Why does the female character have to suffer? Like, again, I'm not saying, because that's part of the point of the story, at the same time, why does it have to end where she's crying and the crying is going throughout the whole credits? I was so disturbed by that, I had to beeline out of the auditorium. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so disturbing. This is so messed up. Like, okay, fine, that's good that he's dead. But also, again, what I've already said, okay, with Ian, we just pop him and he's gone. Horrible what happened to Sarah, the brick to the face so many times. And then what happens with the entity that it just kind of leaves her stranded. She's, naked, strung up on that thing. That was, really disturbing. And again, the villain, the horrible dude in this movie, how does he die? Oh, he took some pills and he just succumbed to them. And it's like, again, you did portray some brutality, some intensity. And instead, no, you're going to give it to the female characters. So again, I do not appreciate how people react to this sort of stuff that, first off, that they wouldn't even make note of it. And then to treat it like it's the best thing to ever exist. And it's like, no. You may disagree with me on what I'm about to say, but I fully think there's some very real aspects to this. Okay, the truth is, there are way more people who consider themselves enlightened, progressive, whatever you want to say, to be a little bit more like equality and let's treat everyone well. But then you see what depictions, what intentions, and something like this. Sometimes the message is there. Like I said, if this movie were more like Companion, if it had more of a female perspective, if it had more, not the gratuity of everything, it was way more of why show it? Why do this? Again, I don't know quite how to phrase what I'm saying on the off chance that when I'm saying what I'm saying about the gratuity and all the focus on that, and then definitely not giving the same treatment to the male characters, hopefully that is kind of being translated what I'm trying to say. My point is to say that there are way more still very sexist, still very misogynistic people, and these are the same people that will try to say that they're not like that. And it's just interesting that even now, that sort of portrayal is still going to happen, even when it's a message that's supposed to talk about it. You're still portraying the same thing. You're still framing it the same way. And I think that's not right. Basically what I'm trying to say, and I can already feel out what someone would say to go against what I'm trying to say, is it should have been a bit more blatant and in your face. And I know some people are like, subtlety is the best. But here's the thing. Look at some of the people that are treating Bear like he's the victim. You should have a movie that they're uncomfortable with who should be the villain. I don't agree that it should be how they kind of treated it with Bear. Yeah, he's a terrible guy, he is a villain, all that sort of thing. But I think if there's leeway in your storytelling, if there's a way to interpret it as if whether it's the narrative is sympathetic towards him or he's not that bad of a guy. Now again, regardless of how you portray Bear, I'm sure there would still be guys out there that would be like, I see nothing wrong with it, what he did. So I'm not trying to say that there wouldn't be caveats, but the number of people that have this same opinion, and even the people, I looked and saw both the director and the actor for Bear. Both of them don't consider Bear to be the villain. They consider him complicated. They consider him mixed. And it's like, excuse me? And that's the thing. What I'm trying to say, you have to look at intention. You have to look at the execution of it. Clearly, the intention was not that he's this horrible guy. Why would you depict it that way? I'm just trying to say, I'm not saying spoon feed us whatever. That's really not what I'm trying to say. My point is, why have the gratuitous violence? You're basically doing the same thing as someone who 100% hates women would do the same thing. I think that's really distasteful and disgusting. I wish this movie could have been better. I wish this movie could have been a little bit more of like what I thought it would be. And again, this is not a criticism of my expectations versus what the movie actually was. That is not what I'm trying to say. My point is, how is it that, let's say, a show like Game of Thrones, there's rape everywhere, there's incest everywhere, like horrendous, brutal violence, and I know that's a very well-loved show until, the last season. My point is, just about that same sort of depiction, and you're gonna have obsession and try to say that, oh, well, this is a commentary. This is bringing to light about this. And it's like, if you're doing the same thing, how is it really doing anything else? So, and that's the thing that can be interesting. For example, I can bring up Companion again. Okay, so like I said, horrendous on-screen rape. I never want to see that, ever, ever, ever. It's terrible. And that should really be eliminated because we have too many that literally see it as voyeuristic, if that's how it's pronounced. The point is, there are people who get off on it, right? And they see no problem with it. So the last thing we should be doing is showing more of that for them. But what Companion does, so I will touch on spoilers for a second. So if you want to skip like 20 seconds, go ahead. He has Iris as a companion robot. So he could do whatever he wants with her. He can have sex with her, do all sorts of things. And so what they do with that is they only shoot him. They don't have us see the full shot of him doing it to her. You just see the very end. And it's like, exactly. You do not have to show that. We can understand what's happening. We don't have to see it. And again, the framing of Companion is fantastic. It is female driven. It is about almost the same thing, but it's how are you making this story? How are you framing this story? And again, I just wish they did it way more like Companion than they did here with Obsession. And again, the guy, the creator of this, he really looks creepy. And so I finally figured out what I wanted to say about this guy. He's looking like a Jeffrey Dahmer clone. Like he's looking like a lookalike here. So, bit of a red flag, whatever the case. And another thing that I wanted to touch on, kind of what I'm saying about the gratuitous violence. Who are they brutalizing? Is it the guys that are actually the villains? No, the victims, the horrendous stuff. And again, it is, what are you doing? You have the male characters, the female characters. And again, this is a male creator. You gotta really look at intention, who's making this story, that sort of thing. Honestly, you could call this movie Female Torture the Movie and you wouldn't be wrong. And that really disturbs me. And I'm not saying, I am aware of the history of horror. I am aware that they do that a lot. But considering where we are now, why still do that? We could do more, we could do better. Whatever the case, I am ridiculously disappointed in this. Again, the way people are analyzing this movie, again, taking something from nothing or looking more into a story that was barely that much on the surface, I wish I could have seen the movie that everyone else saw, or what people interpreted this movie to be. That sounded like a way better movie. So, like I said, I gave it a 2 stars. I wouldn't say it was 1 star, horrendous, but it was terrible. And yeah, like the actress for Nikki, she was fantastic. I do agree with others that Bear wasn't that strong. Whatever the case, this is a movie I am really disappointed with. Also, I have to say, I hope my more clarification will kind of give a little bit more of insight of what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to verbalize it. I'm trying to make it clear what I'm trying to say. So I hope that came through well. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I look forward to talking more about movies. I've got so many movies to catch up on. I've got like 26 now. So I have a lot of movies that I will talk about. I have pretty much all the reviews written down. I just have to film them. So do not worry, everybody. It is coming. There's just so much that's been happening in life. So I just got back from vacation. I'm going to be prioritizing this. So again, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Please like the video, comment down below, and do subscribe to this channel. I talk a lot about movies. I talk a lot about TV shows. I might get into more stories as well. So again, thank you everybody, and goodbye.